Picture this. My ass pressed against the cold kitchen counter, Jason's calloused hands gripping my hips as he shoved his dick inside me, my husband's favorite coffee mug shattering on the floor beside us. I was 55, he was 32, and in that moment, I did not care about the wedding photos on the fridge or the spy camera blinking in the ceiling vent above. My tits heaved against his chest, my nails clawing his back raw, our moans drowning out the guilt. But that red light in the vent? It was not just watching, it was recording. And by the time Daniel sold that clip to his highest bidder, our marriage was already a corpse. I am a 55-year-old woman from the quiet suburbs of Charleston, South Carolina. My name is Cynthia Taylor, and for 30 years, I believed my husband Daniel was a simple, hard-working man who traveled often for consulting work. What I did not know was that his business dealt in darker currencies, secrets, shame, and the exploitation of trust. Daniel Taylor, my husband of 3 decades, was a man who wore his charm like a tailored suit. At 60, his salt and pepper hair and easy smile masked a soul corroded by greed. Then there was Jason Miller, the personal trainer at my local gym. His kindness was a balm for the loneliness Daniel's absences carved into me. Our 2-story colonial home, with its wraparound porch and hydrangea bushes, was the picture of suburban tranquility. But behind closed doors, the cracks in our marriage yawned wide. Daniel's trips grew longer, his excuses thinner. I began to notice unfamiliar receipts, hotel charges in cities he never mentioned. One autumn evening, while Daniel was away, Jason and I found ourselves tangled in the kind of desperation that blooms from loneliness. His hands traced the curves I had long forgotten could inspire hunger, and I surrendered to the heat of his mouth on my skin. The kitchen counter dug into my back as we moved with a rhythm that felt like rebellion, a fleeting escape from the hollow marriage that had become my prison. In that moment, I was not a wife, not a betrayer, just a woman reclaiming a sliver of the passion Daniel had buried under years of neglect. What I did not know was that the ceiling vent above us hummed softly, its lens capturing every gasp, every shudder, every forbidden second. He had stumbled upon my affair weeks earlier. A client from his shadowy network had offered him a small fortune for authentic cheating wife content. Greed, not heartbreak, drove him to turn our home into a stage. Before I go further, I want to thank every single one of you who has subscribed to this channel. Your support fuels these stories. If you are new here, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It is the energy that keeps me going. Now, share your thoughts below. Could you forgive a betrayal this calculated? The autumn leaves had turned brittle by the time I realized my home was no longer a sanctuary. Daniel's absences stretched into weeks, leaving me adrift in a house that echoed with memories of happier days. Jason became my escape, a lifeline wrapped in muscle and empathy. He listened to my frustrations over green tea at the gym cafe, his hazel eyes softening with a compassion Daniel had long abandoned. When he traced his thumb over the back of my hand one afternoon, I did not pull away. Daniel, meanwhile, was not consulting for corporate clients in Atlanta or Dallas. He was in a rented warehouse on the outskirts of Charleston, bartering snippets of my vulnerability to men who craved voyeuristic thrills. The cameras were small, sleek, and hidden in places I would never think to check. The antique clock above the fireplace, the bookshelf crevice, even the faux crystal pendant light in our bedroom. He had chosen each angle meticulously, ensuring every sigh, every touch between Jason and me was captured in high definition. The first clip sold for $5,000. Daniel received the payment in cryptocurrency from a client who called himself Silent Observer 22. It showed Jason and me on the leather couch in the den, his callous fingers brushing the nape of my neck as I laughed at a joke I no longer remember. Daniel watched the footage once, not with rage, but with the cold calculation of a trader assessing stock. Then he uploaded it to a private server, where it was devoured by strangers. I began to sense eyes on me, a flicker of movement in the corner of my vision. The faint whir of machinery when the house was silent. One evening, as Jason and I lingered in the kitchen, I glanced up at the ceiling vent and froze. A tiny red light pulsed in the shadows, rhythmic as a heartbeat. I said nothing. Fear, sharp and sour, coiled in my throat. But desire had made me reckless. The red light in the ceiling vent became my compass. For days, I mapped its rhythm, blinking only when Daniel was away. I waited until the house was empty, then dragged a stepladder into the den. My hands shook as I unscrewed the vent cover. Inside, nestled between dust and cobwebs, was a lens no larger than a button. It stared back at me, unblinking, accusatory. I tore through the house like a woman possessed. I found cameras in the bedroom lampshade, behind a framed photo of our wedding day, even inside the porcelain vase Daniel had gifted me for our anniversary. Each discovery felt like a knife twisting deeper. This was not a crime of passion. It was a business transaction. That night, I confronted Daniel. He returned home smelling of alcohol and airport terminals, his suitcase still rolling behind him. I hurled the cameras onto the marble kitchen island. His face paled, but he did not flinch. How long? My voice was a blade. He sighed, loosening his tie as though discussing a mismanaged bank account. 6 months. The client wanted raw footage. Said it sells better. The confession was clinical. He owed money to dangerous people, he explained. A failed investment in a cryptocurrency scheme had left him drowning. The cameras were not about punishing me, they were profit margins. I laughed until my ribs ached. 30 years of marriage reduced to a ledger. But the true twist came days later. Jason arrived at my door, his jaw tight, eyes avoiding mine. He had known about the cameras. A friend in Daniel's circle had warned him. He had pursued me not out of affection, but to extort Daniel. My affair was leverage. I wanted him to pay, Jason muttered, staring at his hands. He ruined my brother's life with one of his scams. Betrayal, I learned, was a Russian nesting doll. Every layer hid another. Daniel's clients began to circle like vultures. One demanded more content or threatened to expose him. Another sent a screenshot of Jason and me in the shower, pixels blurred but unmistakable. My body was no longer mine. It was a commodity, traded in the dark corners of the internet. I packed a suitcase that evening. Daniel watched from the doorway, his silence louder than any plea. You turned us into monsters, I said. He did not deny it. Revenge, I discovered, was not a wildfire, it was a slow burn. A methodical unraveling. I moved into a boutique hotel downtown, paying in cash to avoid leaving a trail. From there I plotted. Daniel had turned our marriage into a spectacle. I would turn his empire into ash. The first step was to become him. I combed through his encrypted files, courtesy of a tech-savvy PI named Marcus, who charged extra for discretion. Daniel's consulting business was a labyrinth of shell companies, offshore accounts, and blackmail deals. His clients included politicians, CEOs, and a minor celebrity with a taste for forbidden footage. I copied every transaction, every incriminating email. Then I reached out to Silent Observer 22. His real name was Victor Russo, a reclusive tech mogul from Silicon Valley. He answered my burner phone call on the third ring, his voice a graveled whisper. You have 5 seconds to convince me not to ruin you. I have footage of Daniel admitting to fraud, I said. and a list of every client he's ever sold to, including you. The silence hissed like static. Then, what do you want? A partnership. Victor's lawyers drafted the non-disclosure agreements. In exchange for immunity, he would leak Daniel's files to the FBI and finance my divorce. But I added my own clause. Daniel would never know I orchestrated his downfall. Let him writhe in mystery. The trap was set. Meanwhile, Jason reappeared, pleading for redemption. He stood in the hotel lobby, rain-soaked and hollow-eyed, claiming he wanted to make things right. I almost believed him, until I noticed the fresh Rolex on his wrist, a gift from Daniel, paid to keep me distracted. "You are predictable," I said, sliding a photo of him and Daniel meeting at a dive bar across the counter. His face crumpled. "He threatened my family," Jason muttered. "So did I replied. The PI had dug up Jason's tax fraud. A single email would send him to prison. By dawn, Daniel's world imploded. News vans clustered outside our home. His clients received anonymous emails, comply or be exposed. The FBI froze his accounts. He called me once, his voice fraying. "Cynthia, please. I have nothing left." I hung up, but as I stared at the Charleston skyline from my hotel window, victory tasted like ash. The woman in the reflection was a stranger, ruthless, calculating. Daniel's mirror image. Daniel Taylor was arrested on a Tuesday morning. The FBI stormed his warehouse with warrants for fraud, extortion, and illegal surveillance. His mugshot flashed across local news, eyes hollow, salt and pepper stubble framing a face I no longer recognized. His empire of secrets collapsed in a single day. But victory, I learned, was not a salve. It was a mirror. Victor Russo honored our deal. He leaked the files, funded my divorce, and vanished into the digital ether. But he left a parting gift, a USB drive containing every clip Daniel had sold. A reminder, his note read, that monsters are not born. They are made. I burned the drive in the hotel fireplace, watching the flames lick away the last traces of my humiliation. Jason disappeared too. Rumor had it he fled to Belize after repaying Daniel's blood money. I did not pity him. We had all become architects of our own ruin. The divorce was finalized in a cold, sterile courtroom. Daniel pleaded for a final meeting, but I refused. His letters piled up unopened in my mailbox. Apologies, excuses, desperate bargains. Grief, I realized, was not for the man he had become, but for the man I once thought he was. I sold the colonial house with its hydrangeas and hidden cameras. The proceeds funded a small cottage on Sullivan's Island, where the Atlantic wind scrubbed the stench of betrayal from my lungs. I adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier named Captain, and volunteered at a women's shelter. Slowly, the numbness thawed. Months later, a package arrived. Inside was a faded photo of Daniel and me on our wedding day, young and grinning under a Carolina sunset. On the back, he had scrawled, "I am sorry I forgot to love you." I buried the photo in a drawer. Some ghosts do not deserve resurrection. If you have made it this far, thank you. This story was not easy to tell, but your support gave me courage. To every viewer and listener, especially those who have been where I stood, your resilience is a light in the dark. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment below. What would you have done in my shoes? Could you walk away, or would you burn it all down? Share this story with someone who needs to know they are not alone. Subscribe for more raw, real tales of betrayal and redemption. If you haven't hit that button yet, let this be your sign. We're just getting started. Your voices fuel this channel. Until next time, remember, Surviving is not the end. It is the beginning.